Good afternoon. It is great to be with everyone, and I am excited to have a conversation with you. But I want to first start and ask you all a question. Have any of you ever been trapped in a box? Have any of you all ever felt like you were stuck in a box? Well, many years ago, I found myself on a frigid morning in the middle of nowhere in an unknown location, literally stuck in a small box. I had been bound up behind my back with handcuffs. I had shackles on my legs and I had a bag over my head. And there I was in this small box in this dank space, not knowing how long I was going to be there, not knowing what was going to happen to me while I was there, and not having any idea as to what was in store for me as I found myself stuck in that box. How many of you have ever found yourself stuck in a box? How many of you have ever felt like what I just described, not knowing what is going to happen? If you've ever had that feeling, whether it be from what's happened this past year, from COVID to social unrest to online school, if you've had that feeling, just throw some type of emoji, something in the chat box to let us know that you've had that same feeling. Whether it be a fist, a pound, whatever that is, throw something in the chat box to let us all know that you've had a similar feeling. You see, as I sat in that box, as the frigid air creeped under the bottom of that cell that I was stuck in, not knowing what was to come, all I could think to myself was to not quit. All I could think to myself was, do not give up whatever you do. All I could think to myself was, no matter what happens, I have to ensure that I have infinite hope. And as I have infinite hope, that I ensure that every single thing that I do from this moment on, as I'm locked in the cell, cuffed behind my back, shackles around my legs, dank bag over my head, to ensure that everything I do is all about deliberate action, accompanied by my infinite hope of the possibilities of what is to come. Now, I'll come back to that cell in a little bit and I'll tell you a little bit more about it, but you've got to stay engaged with me today and go on this journey with me so I can explain to you what happened and how I found myself, how I got out of those cuffs, how I got out of those shackles, and how I got that bag off my head, and how I got out of that box, how I got out of that cell. And hopefully something that I share with you today will help you to find your way out of whatever box, whatever cell that you might find yourself in. I led off with that video about trust. The one thing I want to ask you all right now is I want to ask each and every one of you to do whatever it is that you can do right now. Make a commitment to yourself to trust yourself. There'll be an opportunity for you to trust other people along this journey of life, along this journey of success. But what I want you to do is I want you to start with trusting yourself. You can't have infinite hope and you can't take deliberate action if you don't first start with trusting yourself. You've got to be able to trust yourself to be able to do what it is to take you towards success, to do what it is to get you out of the box that you might find yourself in. Whether that box is put on you by society, whether that box is put onto you by your family, put onto you by friends or so-called friends, people at your church, even some educators, some teachers. You have to figure out what you have to do to trust yourself first and foremost to get you out of that box. Well, who am I and why am I here talking to you all? Give me a second. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about who Jason Harris is and why I'm here having a conversation with you guys today. You see, folks, my name is Jason Harris, as Terry said, and thank you so much for the introduction, Terry. And it has been an absolute delight to be a friend of yours since we were young and in college. Since we were trying to figure out our way and trying to figure out how do we make our way through life and make our way to success. Like Terry said in my introduction, I'm from Oakland, California. If anybody here is from California, throw that in the chat group. If you're from California at all, whether it's Northern California or Southern California, throw something in the chat group to let me know where you're from. And if you're from Oakland, definitely tell me where in Oakland, where in the Bay Area you're from. But folks, I grew up in Oakland, California. I am number 2 of my mother's 6 children, the product of her 3 different marriages and 4 different fathers to her 6 children. What I often tell people as I reflect on how I grew up is I tell people that I must have been destined to be a leader because of the challenges that I experienced as I was growing up. Single parent home, different things that happened, latchkey kid. My mom was working constantly to ensure that she could take care of her children, and we were left many a days to figure things out for ourselves. Like some of you all, you might have struggled to figure out how to make it for yourself, and you're still trying to figure that out as you realize that your parent or parents are constantly working to ensure that you are provided for. That was my existence in Oakland, California. I didn't grow up on the nice side of Oakland. I didn't grow up in the hills or in the expensive part. I grew up in the area that was rough in East Oakland, California, where I got to see firsthand drug dealing, and I got to see a lot of other things that I as a young person should have never seen and never been exposed to. And there were many opportunities for me to lose my way as I was growing up. Watching my uncle sell drugs, watching other people around me, some of my peers as I was growing up in elementary school there in Oakland, watching them go into these other areas that they should have never been involved with. And I got to see that growing up. Well, my mother decided that she wanted to provide us something better, and she wanted to give us better opportunities in life. So my mother moved us from Oakland, California to Texas after she enlisted into the United States Army. And in that move to Texas, we had another chance for a fresh start. And as we went to Texas, we got an opportunity to start, and I found myself getting involved with different things. And I found myself in trouble, like some of you possibly. You see, like some of you, as I was growing up, I encountered where that box came back into play early in my life. And what I mean is I found that there were teachers that told me that I'd never accomplish anything. I found that there were people at my church, yes, at my church, that told me that I would never amount to anything, that I would never be anyone, no matter what I did, and that I would not be a success. I had different family members that didn't believe in me and didn't believe that I had the ability to succeed in life. Well, folks, I'm so thankful that I did not listen to those people, and that my mother encouraged me to not listen to those people, that my mother encouraged me to make certain that I did three critical things. That first thing that I want you guys to do, and if you have a moment, you've got your iPhones, your iPads, paper, whatever it is that you use to take notes. If you want to do one thing, just take a couple of notes for me today that might be helpful. And if you don't, just remember these things. There was three things that I did that helped me to get to where I am. The first thing was I had to define success. I had to define what success looked like for Jason. Right? Even now, as I continue to live life with a wife, with a young 5-year-old daughter, I have to continue to evaluate, what does success look like for me? So I want you all to think about, what does success look like for you? If you have an idea of what success looks like for you, just take one word and put that in the chat. For somebody, it might be being a teacher. For somebody, it might be a lawyer. Somebody, it might be a police officer. It might be being an FBI agent. Maybe a U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agent. Maybe a Border Patrol pilot. Maybe an Army helicopter pilot. You guys see Army helicopters flying around all the time out there at Fort Carson. Maybe it's going to the Air Force Academy. You could put cadet in the chat group, in the chat box. But just take one word. What does success look like for you? It might be being a firefighter, a fireman. It might be being a beautician, being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, being a truck driver, being like Dr. Lewis, being a professor at a college, whether it's Pikes Peak Community College, Colorado College, UCCS, DU, CU, it doesn't matter. Maybe a college professor is what you want to do. Maybe you want to be a doctor, a physician, a nurse. What matters is not who I am. What matters is not who Dr. Lewis is, what Miss Blackwell is, or anyone else, or even Judge Walter. What matters is what it is that you want to be, and how it is that you individually define what success is for you. So if you don't want to put it in the chat box, that's okay. But what I encourage you to do is write it down, put a note in your iPad, put a note in your iPhone, however you take notes. I want you to capture what success looks like for you, because that will determine how you model that infinite hope. And that will determine how you create and choose those deliberate actions that allows you to define what success looks like. The next thing that I want you guys to think about of keys that help me to achieve the success, the limited success that I've achieved so far. I told you about defining what success looks like for you. The second thing I want you guys to consider is believing in yourself. I told you guys that there are many people that told me that I couldn't amount to anything. Imagine if I had to listen to any of those people that told me I couldn't do anything. Imagine if I had to just quit on my idea of success, if I had to just given up when any of those number of people told me that I was not capable of being successful. Some of you all have experienced that. Some of you all are experiencing that from people that you actually care about, that you actually love. And they're telling you what you cannot be. They're telling you what you should not dream of. They're telling you what you should not hope for. Well, folks, it starts with believing in yourself. If you want to be a judge like Judge Walter, if you want to be a professor like Dr. Lewis, if you want to run youth programs like Miss Blackwell, if you want to do anything it is in life, you got to start with defining that success and believing in yourself. The last thing that I want to tell you guys that you got to do is you have to never quit. And we'll come back to that fierce tenacity to never quit. As I was sitting in that box on that cold, frigid day, again, I had to think about what was success in this box going to be like. Because eventually what happened, folks, was they pulled that bag off of my head and they took those restraints off my arms. They took those shackles off my legs. And as I looked around this little small box, there was very few things in that cell. I had been there for hours by this point, and I had no idea how much longer I was going to be in that cell by myself, with one little old school coffee can sitting in the corner for me to do my business. There weren't going to be any bathroom breaks. There weren't going to be anybody walking me to a nice bathroom down the hallway. I was stuck in that box by myself. The third thing is don't quit. I want you to have fierce tenacity to never quit. But as I was stuck in that box by myself, all there was a coffee can. I'm sorry, folks, I'm moving this chat box. I realized I didn't have the chat box up because I want to focus on what we're talking about with each other today. But as I looked at that coffee can that was designed for me to do number one and number two, or a combination thereof, you guys know, right? Never mind. Anyway, but as I looked at that coffee can in that small cell, I had to determine how I was going to define success. I had to determine that I was going to believe in myself, that I was going to get out of this situation no matter what. And I also had to determine that I was not going to quit. Because if I quit, my life depended on it. If I quit, the job that I had been hired to do depended on it. And if I quit, the lives of the people around me, my teammates in the military organizations that I belong to, their lives would be at stake as well. If I quit, if I didn't believe in myself that I could actually make it through this situation, and if I didn't define what my level of success looked like given this particular situation that I found myself in on that cold, frigid day. Folks, I have had the pleasure of being able to attend the Air Force Academy right there in Colorado Springs at the north end of Colorado Springs. Some of you want to go to the Air Force Academy, and I would love to help you figure out what it takes to go to the Air Force Academy. And I promise you, if you're on this call, you are capable of making it to the Air Force Academy. Some of you might want to go to West Point out in New York. Some of you might want to go to the Naval Academy in Annapolis. Some of you might want to go to UCCS, Pikes Peak Community College, Colorado College. Whatever it is, wherever you want to go, some of you might want to do that. For me, that was the Air Force Academy. That was what I had aspired to. But before I ever aspired to go to the Air Force Academy, I had found myself in trouble in sixth grade and in seventh grade. I had went into the principal's office more times than you could count. If there's any principals out there in the audience, I'm sorry. My vice principal in middle school, Mrs. Minerva Trujillo, she became kind of like an auntie to me because I went to her office so many times. And here was the thing. She actually kicked me out of school, out of the normal school, sent me to what's called alternative school in Texas school systems. I'm not sure what y'all call that here, but she kicked me out of school not once, but twice so that I could get my act together. But more importantly, the reason why I remember Mrs. Trujillo as I was going through these challenges, trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, trying to figure out how do I define success, trying to figure out how can I believe in myself and how can I continue to go on this path of what is perceived as success. There was one day that I sat in Mrs. Trujillo's office. And as I sat in her office, she showed me this picture. And as she showed me this picture, it was a picture of her son. It was her son, Paul, and he was at the Air Force Academy. And he was dressed up in his nice dress uniform. It was all fancy and sharp. And he was sitting there in front of a bed desk unit that we had at the Air Force Academy. As I looked at that picture, I believe I was in 7th grade. And as I looked at that picture, I told Mrs. Trujillo he looked like he was going to be somebody, and I wanted to do that. In that moment, on that day, I made a determination that I wanted to attend the Air Force Academy. Even if right now, getting kicked out of school, it doesn't seem like I have a chance, I was going to fight to figure out how to get there. How many of you have ever seen a picture and you knew in that moment when you saw that picture, you knew two things? One, you knew that you would never forget that picture for the rest of your life. Two, you knew that that picture signified what it was and who it was that you wanted to grow up to be in your life. Some of you all have already seen that picture. If you've seen that picture, drop something in the chat to tell me just one or two words or even a sentence about what that picture was and what it is that you wanted to be because of that picture you've seen. Some of you all, you might have seen the Thunderbirds, the premier flying team for the Air Force, fly over the Air Force Academy. You might have seen that picture with your own eyes, watching those jets fly over Colorado Springs. And in that moment, you probably thought, I want to be just like that, right? Somebody said the sky. Somebody said Barack Obama. Absolutely, right? I have a friend of mine. He's a pilot like I am. And you know what he did? He made a commitment to himself. He says, if a black man becomes president, he says, I'll learn how to fly. And he told himself that when he was in high school. And you know what, folks? He became a Navy fighter pilot, and he now flies commercial airplanes. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about his organization at the end as we get towards the end of this, because I'm going to offer you all an opportunity to learn how to fly for those who are interested in flying. It wasn't a picture, but a written piece. It moved something in me. And by God, I now have a dream to write. Absolutely. My dad in his Air Force uniform. MLK Jr., absolutely Oscar winners, right? Some of y'all in here, y'all are absolutely have the ability to be just like as good or better than somebody like Shonda Rhimes, right? Whatever it is, to be like your parent that's in that military uniform. For me, I saw that picture of Paul Trujillo, and as I saw that picture, I knew in that moment who it was I wanted to be, what it was I wanted to be, and how I was going to define success with the limited knowledge that I had at that time. Well, of course, fast forward, I ended up going to the Air Force Academy. And you know what's really cool about that picture? That picture influenced so much of my life in that one moment that I had no idea. So much so that as I went to the Air Force Academy, I graduated, I ended up going to pilot training. And after I got out of pilot training, the Air Force sent me to fly C-130s. One of the coolest airplanes you can ever fly, one of the coolest jobs. You got a crew of 6 people. That video, if you watch that video that I showed at the beginning, it had pictures of C-130s on there. All the planes in there were C-130s. And it is one of the best airplanes in the inventory. I had so much fun. Before I was ever even legal to rent a car by myself, before I was ever 25, I had flown airplanes inches away from other airplanes at 200, 300, 400, 500 feet off the ground. I had been all around the world. I had experienced combat, and I had experience flying as a pilot in a C-130. The amazing piece of that was just understanding that from where I had come from, realizing that I had figured out what I defined as success, realizing that I had believed that I could do it, and realizing that no matter what the challenges were, I would not quit. When people told me I couldn't, when my grades were struggling, when it felt like it was the most challenging experience ever, I did not quit. And it got me to that point of flying C-130s. Well, fast forward, and all of a sudden I'm going to upgrade in C-130s to become what's called an aircraft commander. And folks, that picture, I had never forgotten it, like many of you. And I found myself in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I am not exaggerating. This is absolutely true. As I found myself in Little Rock, Arkansas, I was in a flight suit just like this, and I'm walking down the street. And as I'm walking down the street, I look at somebody who's a senior officer. You can look at their shoulder and see their rank, and look at their hat and you can see their rank. And as I looked at this person, I all of a sudden looked down and I looked at their name tag. And as I looked at this gentleman's name tag, and as I went to go salute him, I looked at his name tag and I realized his name tag said Paul Trujillo. I get chills even now as I think about my picture over 10 years later became real. I had never met Paul a day of my life, had never sat in the same space as Paul. And guess what? On that day in 2005, I was face to face shaking hands with Paul. And as I was shaking hands with him, I was so excited and overwhelmed with excitement to tell him what he meant to me and to tell him about the picture that his mother showed me. His picture that allowed me to define success, allowed me to believe in myself that I could do what I wanted to do, and allowed me to never give up on myself, never give up on my dream. And as I saw him, I talked to him, guess what, folks? Not only did we both graduate from the Air Force Academy, but we both were flying C-130s. That picture, whatever that picture is for you, I want you to hold that picture near and dear to your heart. I want you to hold your ideas of success near and dear to your heart. And I want you to ensure that you don't quit on yourself, that you don't quit on your dream, because if you ever quit on yourself, there's no one else that's going to do the work for you, folks. So for me, I've gone to the Air Force Academy. I've flown C-130s. I've had an opportunity to travel the world. I've done 11 combat deployments flying C-130s. I did special operations. And when I say special operations, folks, I've gotten to work with people that they write books and movies about. You guys know, like Navy SEALs and other really cool special operation guys like that. I've been able to do that. The little guy from Oakland, California, that was not supposed to make it, from a single parent home, multiple marriages, and all kind of different crazy things that I experienced. And I tell you guys that not to brag. I tell you guys that because I want you right now, as you listen, to realize what you could be, to realize who you could be, to realize what your destiny has in store for you, to recognize that today is the moment that you can grab onto that infinite hope. Today is that day that you can put deliberate action in motion. That deliberate action that will support that infinite hope, those desires, those dreams, those aspirations that each and every one of you have. That's why I share my story, because I want you to know that if I'm able to accomplish those things, you very much have the opportunity to do the same thing. Well, what is it that I do now? Today, I still serve as a military officer. And in addition to serving as a military officer, I get to fly airplanes around the world. Have any of you all ever wanted to travel and see the world? If there's a destination that you want to see, drop that in the chat room right now. I want to see, what destinations do folks want to see? Spain, absolutely. Europe, Japan, absolutely. Germany, Italy, yes, keep it going. Germany again, Africa. Okay, in Africa, where in Africa? Swahili, Belgium, absolutely. I want to travel everywhere. Greece, all Europe, Japan, Ireland, Haiti, Philippines, Singapore. Yes, yes, yes. Guess what, folks? Flying airplanes around the world for a commercial airline and even for the military, you know what the coolest thing is? Most of those destinations you guys dropped in there, I've been fortunate to fly to them. And what's even cooler about that is someone paid me. They pay me to fly to those destinations. And see, oftentimes people, they will say, well, how is it to fly? Let me just let me help you to understand what it means to fly an airplane. First off, one of the coolest flights I've had, because people always ask me, what's the coolest destination? I can't tell you the coolest destination because I've gotten to fly to a lot of places. The first one that dropped in there was Spain. I went to Madrid, Spain, and it was the coolest thing ever. Walking around, seeing the place, right? I've been to Paris, and I thought that was one of the coolest things. And for educators, don't get upset with me right now, but some of y'all heard this song with Jay-Z and Kanye a couple of years ago. That's how I felt when I went to Paris. I'm just going to be honest, right? I had to take pictures of me in the Eiffel Tower, but don't tell nobody about that. But I've been to Paris, I've been to Rome, I've been to London, I've been to Manchester. I've been to countries on the continent of Africa, and all because of how I define success. All because I was able to believe in myself, regardless of what people said, and I never quit on myself. For you guys, you have the ability to do that, right? But one of the coolest experiences that I've had was, check this out. I was flying for the airline, and I looked at my schedule. And as I looked at my schedule, it had Oakland on there. And it didn't really, like, I was kind of excited because, okay, cool, I'm gonna go back to Oakland, I'm gonna go to the Bay Area, I know where I'm gonna stay at, I'm gonna go see my grandma, I'm gonna go see my cousins, I'm gonna see my brothers, and I'm gonna have a good time, right? We might get a little hyphy in the Bay, whatever the case may be. But more importantly, it was just like, cool, it was just another destination. I've been to Oakland before and I've grown up there, it's no big deal. But folks, let me explain this to you. One of the coolest experiences in my flying career was as I was flying out of Oakland. First off, as you get on the controls of the airplane, you push the power and you go to pull that stick back, or the yoke, whatever it is, kind of airplane you're flying. The feeling and thinking to myself, like, wait a minute, they let me do this? And the back of this airplane is like 190 something people. And I got all this thrust and all this power, and I'm getting to do this. The kid that got kicked out of school twice, and I'm flying this jet with people that are trusting me to take them from destination to destination. But on that day, folks, as we climbed out of Oakland International Airport, I looked down and I could see the Oakland Coliseum. I could see where the Golden State Warriors used to play. I could see where the Oakland A's used to play. I could see where the Oakland Raiders used to play. And I knew that because I could see that, that was walking distance from my grandmother's house where I grew up at. And I could follow the street and I could see exactly where I grew up at in Oakland. I can see exactly where I was first introduced in seeing crack cocaine and seeing drugs and seeing the craziness that was supposed to destroy my life. And I thought, this is absolutely crazy moment in my world that here it is. Not only did I make it out of Oakland due to some decisions that my mother made, due to some decisions that I had to make, but here it was that I was piloting an airplane with 200 people in the back, getting ready to climb up to 35,000 feet and fly them to another destination. That is one of the coolest flights for me. But how does it feel to fly? It feels amazing. Imagine yourself, you're sitting there in Chicago, you're buckled in, strapped into a jet, a 767, a Boeing 767 or a Boeing 777. You've got 200 to 300 people in the back of that airplane. And as the sun is getting ready to set, you're actually on the runway, you power up those engines, and as you take off out of Chicago, you look down. And as you look down over the city of Chicago, you see Lake Michigan, what you've been taught about in geography class. As you look back, as you make a turn, you look back and you see the entire skyline of the city of Chicago. You see the whole lake line of Lake Michigan. And the coolest thing is, as we climb up to altitude, we put the aircraft on autopilot and get situated, and we get to sit back and relax a little bit. It's cool, but the coolest part about that flight is when the sun's coming up in the morning, like 8, 9, 10 hours later, and as the sun's coming up in the morning, you're actually looking out as you're descending into Paris. Like, it's one thing to fly into Paris because you paid to go there and to see it, and that's awesome. But it was just life-changing for me to realize that here it was that I am at the controls of this huge airplane, right? I barely knew how to make paper airplanes when I was a kid, but now I'm actually flying this massive airplane. And as the sun's coming up in Paris, France, here it is, I'm getting ready to land this 600,000 pound beast onto the runway, where 200-300 people are expecting me to get them to their destination safely. You guys are probably wondering about that box that I told you guys about at the beginning. Here's the deal. That box, that was a training exercise where they kept us in these cells for over 30 hours in preparation for the possibility that we could be kidnapped or captured by terrorist organizations or anything else like that based on the job that it was that I did. So that box was a very, very real box. Being shackled at the legs, being handcuffed, having a bag over my head, that was very real. The feeling of being put away for over 30 something hours, of not having your freedom, of having a coffee can to do your business in, that was very real, very visceral. I can still feel everything about it to this day. And the reason why I tell that story is because a lot of us, We allow life, we allow people, we allow society, we allow social media, we allow just things and people and noise to put us in that box. And we don't have to, right? There were things that I had to do to ensure that I got out of that box safely during that training exercise. Had I not set up what success looked like for me in that environment, because there were things that you had to do to get out of it. There were things that I had to do to get the bag off my head, things I had to do to get the cuffs and shackles off my hands and off my legs. And if I didn't believe that I could do it, then it would have made it that much easier for me to just quit. And if I quit, I would have quit on myself first and foremost. I would have quit on my team, and I would have quit on the job that I had always wanted to do. For you guys, that box, what are you doing right now to ensure that you don't allow anybody to put you in that box? And if you find yourself in that box, what are you doing to get yourself out of that box? Now, I'm going to go over here to the questions real quick because there's some questions that people are asking. But here's the thing, folks. I want you guys to be thinking those 3 things I told you about. And the biggest one is defining what success looks like, because that's going to help you to get out of that box that some of you guys are in. That box that some of you all have found yourself into because somebody told you the only thing you could be is this one thing. Or you're not going to be good enough to me if you don't become this, right? Some of you guys, your parents might want you to be a physician, a doctor, but instead you're like, no, I want to be a nurse, and that's okay. Some of you all want to be an educator, whereas somebody in your family or somebody around you says, I think you should be a lawyer or you can be this. And so now you found yourself in this little box based on what someone has told you. I want you to think about those 3 things. Define success, the first thing. I then want you to believe in yourself that no matter what it is that you want to do, that you can do it. And then I want you to, no matter what, don't quit, don't give up. Because when you do that, you can't succeed. The opportunities are there for you guys to do so much. And I want to see each and every single one of you guys succeed. And whatever that is that you put your mind to. I'm going to get into some of these questions, and I told you guys I'm going to offer something to you. So guys, I want you guys to stay tuned in. All right, so let me see something. Somebody asked me a question and I saw pop up. Were you ever scared when you had to fly them? Here's the thing. I'm going to tell you guys a secret that not a lot of people know. If you don't know me personally, or you've never heard certain things that I've said, you wouldn't know this. I flew airplanes in the military. I fly airplanes commercially now, Boeing 777s, Airbus 319s, 320, 321. I used to fly very small airplanes in the military doing some special operations stuff. But here's the secret. I'm actually afraid of heights. I know, it's confusing. Don't try to figure that out, but I'm actually afraid of heights. Here's the thing. Some of you all are afraid to fail. Guess what? I'm still very afraid to fail. Every time that I have to go and take a check ride, like at least once a year, if not twice a year, we have to do what's called a check ride, which is a test for the airplane to determine if you can keep flying. I actually get nervous. I actually get scared because I know that if I fail, then I could possibly lose my job and never fly an airplane again. I tell you that because I want you to understand that just because I've told you about some of the successes that I've had and you heard the bio that someone has read, or you might find something about me or someone else, I want you to understand that that doesn't mean that we don't get scared. That doesn't mean that we don't get anxious about things. That doesn't mean that we don't get nervous, right? There are still times where I'm very scared. But again, I go back to those 3 things. I define what that success looks like. I believe in myself that I can do it, and I just don't quit. I don't give up. I'm not better than anybody. Every single one of you all in here can do exactly what I've done. Every single one of you all in here are a hero or a shero. You have the capability to be a massive influence, to be a superhero, to be a giant. The key to that is figuring out what it is that you're going to be a superhero in. Mine happens to be that I fly airplanes. For you, what is that? And there's going to be a lot of things that you're afraid of. The first time I ever flew wingtip inches away from another airplane, I was very scared. There's a lot of words that I could use, a lot of descriptive words I could use. But let's just say I was very scared the first time I did that. The first time I got to fly the Boeing 777 this past summer from Miami to London, I was qualified to fly it, but I had only flown the simulator. So the first time I actually flew the airplane was with paying passengers in the back. Oh, I was scared and nervous because I didn't want to mess anything up. So it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be nervous. You just have to figure out how to push through that fear and through that nervousness. All right. Is there possibly any way I could get a copy of your speech? Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Mr. Caldwell. Let's see here. How do I get out of that box instead of box's anxiety? Again, those three things are going to help you get out of that box. I get anxious quite a bit. I get afraid quite a bit, but I figure out how to ensure that I center myself in the purpose of why I'm there, center myself with what it is my mission is, believe that I have the ability to do it, and then I ensure that I set myself up that I don't ever quit, right? Oftentimes, when I go to training, it's a daunting task for me to learn how to fly a new airplane because I've never flown it before. Yeah, I've flown airplanes, but I've never flown that airplane. And that task becomes daunting, and I get a lot of anxiety because of that. And then it's like, wait a minute, I have to back that task up, back that accomplishment up of flying that aircraft and say, let me just start with the first part of it, right? Going through college, going to the Air Force Academy, I couldn't start with, oh, I'm going to graduate and I'm going to fly airplanes. I had to start with, I got to just get through these first classes, got to get through this first semester, right? So when you're dealing with anxiety and fear, a lot of times break up what it is that's causing you that level of anxiety, break up what it is that's causing you that fear. And as you break that thing up, then you can put it into bite-sized chunks. There's a popular saying out there that says, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do we get through life? One challenge at a time. When I was in that cell with that bag over my head, cuffs on my arms, shackles on my legs, I had to first figure out how do I get the handcuffs off of my hands. I had been trained to take handcuffs off, and I had to figure out how to get the handcuffs off of my hands first. And then once I was able to get the handcuffs off, then I could figure out I could now take the bag off of my head. And then after that, I can now see the shackles on my legs. I can figure out how to get those off, right? Look at the things that you're dealing with in life like that and go one by one, piece by piece, and figure out how to do that. When I saw that picture in 7th grade, what steps did you take to make sure you could get where you wanted to be? What high school credits did you need in order to go to the Air Force Academy? For the Air Force Academy, there is a website, I believe it's academyadmissions.com or airforceacademyadmissions.com. Look it up on Google. It'll tell you every single thing you need to know. I could sit here and tell you all the details, but that site is far more detailed than what I could tell you right now in this webinar. And I want you, if you're interested, to go there and do that. I also want you to understand, if you're interested in the Air Force Academy or any military service academy or an ROTC scholarship at a regular university, if there's a picture that you've seen that seems like that picture doesn't fit your narrative because maybe that person doesn't look like you, especially with this being an Educating Children of Color Summit, and you say, well, maybe I see only faces that don't look like me, I only see genders that don't look like me, then go and find the photo that looks like you so that you can then begin to understand and recognize that you can be that. Because that becomes a limiting belief and a limited behavior that will get in your way. So I don't want you all to do that as you're looking at the academy. But go out there and find the information that you need, and it'll tell you. And I say that because we are looking for well-rounded people. We're looking for a diverse population to be the leaders in our military. All right, I'm going to go to the bottom. I'm going to do one more question. Favorite plane to fly? I don't know. Let's see. Do you think it would be helpful to do the Air Force Reserves? Absolutely. All right. They said remind you guys to make sure you do the evaluation. Have I ever fallen? I'm going to answer this last question. I'm going to give you guys the gift that I want to give you. Have you ever fallen short of the task you need or want to complete, achieve? If so, how do you respond to that? Yes, I have failed before. I have failed miserably before. I have failed classes in college. Don't tell nobody. I struggled going through the Air Force Academy. It was really tough. I have failed flights and training programs before. I don't have it all figured out. I'm not perfect, right? Again, I go back to those other lessons, which are understand that I have to break things down and figure out, number one, I'm not going to quit. Number two, I'm not going to give up on myself. And number three, I can go back and learn and figure out how to do it and find somebody who could help me to figure that out. So, couple of last points, because I think it's almost my time to close things up here. So here's the deal. If any of you all are interested in learning how to fly, I'm going to offer an introductory flight for up to 10 students. Teachers, if you know someone, educators, parents, if you know someone who's interested, but this is what I need you all to do. And by the way, this is going to be in partnership with 2 organizations. If you're interested in flying, there's one organization that's on Instagram and on Facebook, and I want you guys to go follow them now, and I want you guys to shout them out right now, and that is Fly for the Culture. Go find Fly for the Culture. That's a homeboy, and that's the brother who I told you who said if a black man became president, he would learn how to fly. So go find him on Instagram, go find him on Facebook. It's called Fly for the Culture. So I'm partnering with Fly for the Culture and their nonprofit, and I'm partnering with a local nonprofit called High Hopes for Teens of Colorado. Some of you educators might have heard of that. And I'm going to offer up to 10 introductory flights with myself piloting that small airplane locally. And then there's a possibility that you can, if you're very interested and you meet certain criteria and do certain things that are expected of you within this program, we'll also possibly look at figuring out how we can fund for you to get a private pilot license. That is my gift. What I need you to do is I need you to text 719-203-7257. If you're a parent, put parent. If you're an educator, put educator. If you're a student, put student. And I need your details on how to contact you so that I can begin setting things up. Okay, that number again, 719-203-7257. Send a text to that number with the information and we'll start setting things up. Up to 10 people, the first 10 people to get in line, I will give a free introductory flight. The last thing that I want to close and leave every single one of you all with, beyond a thank you for taking your time to listen, is I want you to think about this. Every single day when I get up, I look at it as an opportunity for another great and amazing day to achieve something. No matter how bad the weather is, no matter how much things suck right now, if it's COVID, if I can't fly, if something, it doesn't matter. I look at every single day as an opportunity to do something else amazing. And I tell people it's a great day to be alive, because if I tell myself enough of that infinite hope, then I'll begin to take that deliberate action to get me to that point. For you all, if you can't do that, what I want you to do and what I want to leave you with is this. Every single day when you get up and you look in the mirror, I want you to look at the mirror and tell yourself, number one, that you're absolutely a beautiful creature. You're an absolutely beautiful person. And no one else can tell you anything different. And the second thing I want you to tell yourself is that somebody else wishes that their life sucked as good as yours. With that, thank you all. Have infinite hope for the possibilities of what you can create, and getting geared today and do deliberate action to make that happen. Thank you.